The rain-soaked streets of Ashville had become a palette of shimmering reflections under the street lamps. Marcus, a tall, wiry teenager with a reckless streak a mile wide, had always found the night to be more friend than foe. It was during one such night that his path crossed with a figure that seemed to belong more to nightmare than reality. As Marcus strolled past the abandoned lot on Ellery Street, the sound of rain was punctuated by a distant, eerie melody. There, nestled between the gnarled arms of old oaks, stood the remnants of a once vibrant carnival ground. The place had been deserted for years, ever since the tragedy that had claimed the lives of several children. It was said that they had followed a clown into a never-seen-again oblivion. Despite the warnings and urban legends, Marcus's curiosity was piqued when he saw a flicker of light weaving through the trees. He ventured closer and was met with a sight both bizarre and unnervingly enchanting. A clown, drenched from the rain, balloons in hand, dancing under the canopy of the old ticket booth. His makeup was smeared, and his clothes, a patchwork of garish colors, clung to his lanky frame. "Step right up, step right up," the clown called out, his voice a sing-song melody that belied the sinister glint in his eyes. "Don't be shy, young sir. What's a night without a little fun?" Marcus, always one to defy the safer choice, stepped forward. "What's the game?" he asked, his voice steady, though his heart thudded with a mix of thrill and trepidation. "Oh, it's simple," the clown replied, producing a balloon from his coat. "You just need to follow me. I have more, many more, waiting just beneath where we stand. Balloons of every color and size, but not just any balloons. They whisper secrets and tell tales." Intrigued and partially skeptical, Marcus nodded. The idea of exploring the forbidden, especially a place as infamous as this, was too tempting. They moved towards a small, dilapidated structure that served as an entrance to what Marcus assumed were underground storage or utility rooms. As they descended the creaking steps into the basement, the air grew colder, and the clown's cheerful demeanor started to twist into something more menacing. The cramped space was dimly lit, walls lined with dusty shelves filled with carnival paraphernalia, masks, deflated balloons, and costumes that smelled of mildew and despair. "Now," the clown whispered, turning to face Marcus in the dim light, "the real fun begins." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as the clown reached into his coat, but instead of a weapon, he pulled out a tattered old photo album. He flipped through it, showing Marcus pictures of children, all holding balloons, their eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and fear. "Each one came for the balloons," the clown murmured. "Stayed for the games. Do you want to play a game, Marcus?" "How do you know my name?" Marcus demanded, his voice echoing slightly in the cramped basement. "The same way I know the names of all my guests," the clown said, his smile widening. "But don't worry, the game is simple. Find the right balloon and you can leave. Choose poorly and you join my collection." Fear finally gripping him, Marcus realized the gravity of his situation. This wasn't just a deranged man in a clown costume. This was the monster from the Ashville tales. The clown was notorious not for stealing children's laughter, but for stealing the children themselves. He had to think quickly. As the clown turned to retrieve a balloon, Marcus spotted a rusty pipe lying amongst the debris. With a surge of adrenaline, he seized it. The clown, turning back with a purple balloon in hand, was just in time to see Marcus swing. The pipe connected with a sickening thud, and the clown crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Breathing heavily, Marcus dropped the makeshift weapon and scrambled up the stairs. The rain had stopped, and the clouds parted to reveal a moonlit sky as he burst out of the underground. The morning after Marcus's harrowing escape, Ashville was cloaked in a deceptive calm. Sunlight filtered through the clouds, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. Marcus, haunted by the events of the previous night, made his way to the police station. Every shadow, every noise seemed to stretch his nerves taut, as if the clown was lurking around every corner. Upon arriving at the station, Marcus's story was met with skepticism. The detective, a grizzled man named Hollis, listened intently, but his eyes showed disbelief. "Son, that place has been searched a dozen times over the years. No sign of anyone living there, let alone a homicidal clown," he explained, though his tone suggested he wanted to believe. "But I saw him. I hit him. He's real," Marcus insisted, desperation edging into his voice. Detective Hollis sighed, rubbing his temples. "All right, I'll take a couple of officers and check it out. But this could be dangerous, and I need you to be sure about what you saw." Marcus nodded vigorously, the fear of not being believed almost as intense as his fear of the clown himself. The trio set out for the old carnival ground. As they walked, the place seemed to groan with the weight of its sinister past. The detective and his officers were tense, their hands resting on their holstered guns. They descended into the basement, where Marcus had encountered the clown. It was just as he had left it, with the pipe lying on the floor and a stain that looked disturbingly like blood. But of the clown, there was no sign. "Looks like you did have a confrontation," Hollis admitted, examining the scene. "But whoever it was, they're gone now. Could be hiding anywhere." As they ascended back to ground level, a sharp wind picked up, sending balloons, red, blue, green, floating out from hidden crevices as if summoned by their presence. The sight stopped them in their tracks. "This isn't right," one officer muttered. "These weren't here before." Detective Hollis stared at the balloons, his expression hardening. "We're dealing with someone who's playing games. Let's get back and regroup." Marcus felt a chill as they left the site. The clown was still out there, and now he knew Marcus had tried to turn him in. That night, Marcus lay in bed, restless and fearful, when his window creaked open slowly. A balloon slipped through the gap, floating eerily towards him. Tied to it was a note. "Come out to play, Marcus." Panic gripped him. He rushed to the window, slamming it shut and locking it, but the damage was done. The clown knew where he lived. The reality of his situation sank in. He wasn't safe anywhere. The following day, more balloons appeared, at his school locker, on his front porch, even inside his car. Each one bore a similar message, taunting him, urging him to return to the carnival ground. Marcus knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. He needed help, but from someone who would believe the full extent of his terrifying ordeal. Desperate, he turned to the local library to research the carnival's history and its mysterious owner, hoping to find a clue, anything that might help him uncover the identity of the clown. His research led him to a forgotten tragedy, the fire that had originally shut down the carnival. It had started during a magic show in the main tent, claiming several lives. The owner of the carnival had vanished shortly after, leaving behind debts, a ruined reputation, and a dark cloud of suspicion. As Marcus dug deeper, he uncovered a name associated with the owner that chilled him to the bone. Jeremiah. The night Marcus and Eliza decided to confront the clown was a canvas of inky blackness, the moon concealed behind a thick veil of clouds. The air was thick with the scent of impending rain, and the streets of Ashville were eerily silent as they made their way towards the abandoned carnival ground. Eliza, armed with a flashlight and a determined expression, kept her pace steady beside Marcus. "This Jeremiah Cast, you think he's the clown?" she asked, her voice low. "It's the only lead we have," Marcus replied, his eyes scanning the darkness. "But everything fits too well. The carnival's history, the disappearances, the fire. It's like he's haunting the place, punishing the town for his downfall." As they approached the carnival, the air grew colder, and the melody that Marcus had heard on his first visit floated through the air. A haunting tune that seemed to be coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. The derelict ticket booth stood as a grim sentinel, and the rusted gates creaked as they pushed through. Their flashlights pierced the darkness, casting long shadows that twisted and turned like specters fleeing the light. The ground was littered with fallen leaves and broken toys, crunching under their feet. They made their way to the main tent, its canvas tattered and flapping in the wind. As they entered, the atmosphere tightened, oppressive and thick with the smell of burnt cloth and decay. "Over there," Eliza whispered, pointing towards a corner of the tent. There, partially hidden under a canvas, was a trapdoor. With a mutual nod, they approached and pulled it open. A ladder descended into the darkness below. The air that rose up was cool and musty, filled with the echo of distant whispers. As they climbed down into the subterranean space, Marcus's flashlight caught on something, a series of murals painted along the walls. They depicted scenes from Carnival life, but with a macabre twist. Figures with distorted faces and eyes that seemed to follow them as they moved. "This place is a nightmare," Eliza murmured, her voice barely a whisper. The path led them to a larger chamber, at the center of which stood a grotesque statue of a clown, its face twisted into a sinister grin, balloons clutched in its outstretched hand. Around the base of the statue were names and dates etched into the stone, names of the missing children. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "He's been watching this town, taking from it for years," he said, his voice strained. Suddenly the chamber was filled with the sound of laughter, high, chilling, and echoing off the stone walls. From the shadows stepped the clown, his makeup more grotesque than before, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Welcome back, Marcus," he crooned, the voice oily and cold. "And you've brought a friend. How delightful." Eliza stepped forward, her flashlight fixed on the clown. "Your game's end tonight, Cast," she declared boldly. The clown tilted his head, considering her. "Games? Oh, my dear, this is no game. This is a performance, and you've just become part of it." With a swift, Marcus and Eliza, battered but resolute, continued deeper into the labyrinthine network beneath the Carnival. The tunnels seemed to pulse with a malevolent life of their own, the walls adorned with more unsettling murals depicting the Carnival's eerie transformation over the years from a place of joy to one of terror. Their only guide through the darkness was the faint flickering light of their flashlights and the occasional eerie glow of phosphorescent paint on the walls, which seemed to mark a path forward. The air grew denser, colder, as if absorbing the essence of the horrors that the place had witnessed. As they ventured further, they began to hear a low hum, a sound that seemed both everywhere and nowhere. It grew in intensity, vibrating through the stone floor and into their bones. The path led them to a massive underground chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows far above, its walls lined with cages, some empty, others disturbingly not. In the center of the chamber stood a grotesque circus ring lit by a single flickering spotlight. Underneath it, the clown, Jeremiah Cast, was orchestrating what appeared to be a deranged performance. Around him, trapped and frightened, were children from the town, each held captive by twisted mechanical contraptions that mimicked carnival rides. Marcus felt a surge of anger and fear. "Eliza, we have to save them," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Eliza nodded, her face set in a determined grimace. "I'll go left, you go right. Try to disable the machines. I'll cover you." They split up, moving stealthily around the perimeter of the chamber, avoiding the clown's line of sight. Marcus reached the first contraption, a macabre merry-go-round. He worked quickly to disable the mechanism, freeing the frightened child strapped to it. The child ran towards the tunnel, towards safety. Meanwhile, Eliza faced her own challenges. As she approached a twisted swing ride, she was spotted by Cast, who turned his full, terrifying attention towards her. "Ah, my dear, trying to ruin the finale," Cast taunted, his voice echoing ominously around the chamber. He waved his hand, and two automaton clowns sprung to life, moving towards her with jerky, menacing steps. Eliza, undeterred, drew a flare gun from her backpack, something she had brought just in case. She fired directly at the automatons, igniting them in a burst of flame. The distraction gave her just enough time to disable the swing ride and free the children there. As Marcus and Eliza continued their mission, freeing one child after another, Cast's fury grew. He realized that his control was slipping, his audience dwindling as the children escaped. Finally, only Cast remained in the center of the ring, his clown makeup running with sweat and the remnants of his grotesque disguise. He looked at Marcus and Eliza, a twisted smile spreading across his face. "You think you've won, but you've only seen what I wanted you to see," he hissed. "This place, it's alive with the echoes of every scream, every fear. You can't destroy what's already part of history." With a maniacal laugh, he pulled a lever dramatically. The ground beneath Marcus and Eliza shuddered, and the walls of the chamber began to move, closing in slowly. Panic surged through them as the realization hit. They were in a giant trap. Thinking quickly, Marcus spotted a control panel near the ring. He sprinted towards it, dodging Cast's attempts to stop him. Reaching the panel, he frantically searched for anything that might reverse the closing walls. The night following Jeremiah Cast's apprehension found Ashville shrouded in an uneasy peace. Detective Hollis, alongside a team of forensic experts, descended into the cavernous underworld beneath the Carnival, compelled by Marcus and Eliza's harrowing accounts. The reality they unearthed was more grim than anyone had prepared for. As they navigated the labyrinth of tunnels, their flashlights illuminated long hidden horrors. In a secluded alcove, the light caught on something particularly ghastly, a collection of small skeletons, huddled together as if seeking comfort in their final moments. The bones were small, fragile, unmistakably those of children who had vanished years ago. Detective Hollis, hardened by years on the force, felt a chill as he called in the coroner's team. "We found them," he said, his voice a whisper lost amidst the echoes of the chamber. Meanwhile, Marcus and Eliza stood outside the police perimeter, the weight of their discovery pressing down upon them. The air was thick with the ghostly remnants of laughter and screams, echoes of joy and terror that mingled in the night air. Eliza turned to Marcus, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "It's over, but it doesn't feel like it," she murmured. "Does it?" Marcus shook his head, his gaze lost in the distance. "No, it's like he's still here somehow, like the place itself won't let him go." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion from within the Carnival. They watched as paramedics rushed towards the main tent, their urgent strides belying a new crisis. Detective Hollis emerged from the tent a moment later, his face ashen. "There's been an accident," he announced to the gathered crowd of officers and onlookers. "One of the forensic team. He fell. It looks bad." The victim was a young investigator named Tom Reed, known for his eager spirit and meticulous attention to detail. He had been examining the structural integrity of an old performance platform when it gave way beneath him. The fall was fatal. As Reed's colleagues mourned, the grim atmosphere deepened. His death served as a brutal reminder of the Carnival's persistent menace. Later, as Marcus and Eliza walked away from the scene, they passed by the now silent rides and shuttered booths. Eliza paused, looking back at the silhouette of the main tent against the night sky. "Do you think we'll ever be free of this place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "Maybe we can't ever be completely free from it, but we can remember, learn from it, and try to move forward." As they left the Carnival behind, a gust of wind stirred the treetops, and a single faded balloon escaped into the sky, floating away as if carrying the souls of the lost children with it. The gesture was oddly fitting, a release, a letting go of the dark past, yet a reminder of the innocence that had been claimed. Back in town, as the news of the findings and the accident spread, the community began to come together. A memorial was planned for the children whose lives had been lost, and for Tom Reed, whose pursuit of truth had led to his untimely demise. In the heart of Ashville, the grief was palpable, but so was the resolve. Marcus and Eliza, changed forever by the shadows of the Carnival, vowed to ensure that the horrors of Jeremiah Cast's legacy would not be forgotten. They would carry the stories, the lessons, and the scars into the future, a future where such darkness would never again take root. As autumn descended upon Ashville, the leaves began to turn, painting the town in hues of gold and scarlet. The community had started to heal. The memorial for the lost souls had brought closure to many, yet a shadow still lingered, especially around Marcus and Eliza, who had become inseparable in their shared trauma. Eliza, driven by a newfound purpose, became an advocate for the forgotten and the lost, urging the town to never forget the dark past that had almost consumed them. Her passion rekindled a sense of vigilance within the community, a collective commitment to guarding against the darkness. But the darkness was not done with them yet. One chilly evening, As Marcus and Eliza walked home from a community meeting, they decided to take a shortcut through the now abandoned Carnival grounds. The place was set to be demolished soon, a final effort to eradicate the haunting memories it held. As they walked through the desolate grounds, Eliza's flashlight swept across the faded murals and the silent rides, each step stirring up old fears. "Do you ever wonder if we really stopped him?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly in the cold air. Marcus, looking around the eerie stillness, frowned. "Sometimes I think we only scratched the surface. There's something about this place, something that feels unfinished." No sooner had he spoken than a sharp crack shattered the silence. It came from the direction of the main tent, now just a skeletal frame of what it once was. Instinctively, they moved toward the sound, drawn by a mix of fear and an unspoken duty to face whatever remained. As they approached, the ground suddenly gave way beneath Eliza's feet. A hidden sinkhole, a remnant of the underground tunnels, opened like a maw of the earth itself. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing her hand just in time, his grip the only thing between her and the abyss below. "Marcus!" Eliza cried out, dangling precariously over the dark void. "Don't let go." "I won't," he shouted back, his arms straining under her weight. But as he pulled, the unstable ground around the hole crumbled further, his foothold slipping. "Eliza, climb up, I've got you," Marcus urged, desperation coloring his voice. With a monumental effort, Eliza tried to pull herself up, but as she did, a sharp, unseen edge of the opening sliced through her hand. She gasped in pain, her grip faltering. "I can't. Marcus, it hurts!" Marcus, his own hands bleeding from the effort, felt a surge of panic. "Hold on, just a little longer. Help is on the way." But it was too late. With a heartbreaking look of apology, Eliza's hand slipped from Marcus's grasp, and she fell back into the darkness, her scream echoing up until it was abruptly silenced by a dull, ominous thud. Marcus collapsed at the edge of the sinkhole, peering into the abyss, his shouts for Eliza meeting only with the hollow echo of the tunnel. Tears mixed with the dirt on his face as he realized she was gone, swallowed by the very darkness they had fought so hard to eradicate. The emergency services arrived too late. The community rallied around Marcus, grief-stricken and horrified by the loss of such a vibrant soul who had fought so fiercely for their town's redemption. In the days that followed, the carnival grounds were sealed off completely, the sinkholes filled, and the structures demolished. A small park was proposed in place of the grounds, a place of reflection and remembrance, with a statue of Eliza at its center, commemorating her bravery and spirit. Marcus, forever changed by the losses he had endured, stood often by the statue in the following years, the words etched at its base a constant reminder of Eliza's legacy. "In darkness, seek the light." As the final